So the title of my piece today over at HartmannReport.com is How the Rules Determine If Criminals Become Politicians. And, you know, I start out by asking the question, and it's not rhetorical, how do criminals take over countries? Donald Trump, for example, is a criminal, right? The Supreme Court basically said this yesterday. His son Eric invoked the Fifth 500 times. His niece and multiple biographers have chronicled how he's basically been a criminal his entire life. So how do criminals become politicians, you know, like Donald Trump? How do they become politicians, and how did it happen here? Well, first of all, sometimes it's through brute force. I was in the Philippines. I was in Manila when Alivio Javier was assassinated. He was an anti-Marcos politician, rising star. They chased him down the street and murdered him with a pistol in a public bathroom is where they finally caught him. And I think I was staying at the Peninsula Hotel, but it was in the Makati district. And this huge, I mean, there's this giant street that goes through the middle of the district, and this huge procession came through. And then I got bumped off my flight day after day after day as the Marcos cronies were fleeing the country. But basically, it was brute force. That's how Marcos ruled the Philippines and came to power. Sometimes it's strategic blunders. You know, in 1933 in Germany, von Papen and Hindenburg thought, hey, you know, we've got this Adolf Hitler guy. He's charismatic. He's only got about a third of the country on his side, but if we join up with him, they were the conservatives, right? They were the Republicans of their day. If we join up with him, we can control him. And he'll, you know, prevent the socialists or the communists from having any victories in Parliament. Yeah, right, strategic blunders. But in most cases, it's what Alexander Litvinenko called the mafia state. When that happens, it's because the rules have changed. The actual rules of governance. And, you know, it's the rules that define the game. I mean, if you're playing by football rules, you're playing football. If you're playing by baseball rules, you're playing baseball. If you're playing by democracy rules, you're playing democracy. And so what happens here, what happened here? The Supreme Court changed the rules. Starting in the 1970s, after Richard Nixon put Lewis Powell on the Supreme Court in 72, by 78, Lewis Powell had authored the First National Bank versus Bellotti decision, in which he said that, you know, not only if billionaires want to own politicians, but if corporations want to own politicians, that's not bribery, that's free speech. And what that has done, you know, that's literally that and Citizens United in 2010 literally struck down hundreds of state and local laws across the country that were good government laws that limited money in politics. And so now we have, as a result of the Supreme Court changing the rules, it's as if the NFL said, hey, whichever team gives the NFL the most money can have an extra player on the field. Well, the same thing is happening here because of the Supreme Court. And as a result of that, we now have basically government by big money. We've got a mafia state. And I'm not talking about the Biden administration. I'm talking about the opposition to it. Clearly, there are still some who are left. But, you know, reduce student debt, free or low-cost college, dental, hearing, and eyeglasses on Medicare, raise the cap on Social Security, get the post office into banking, stop global warming, clean up all the poisons in our food supply, make pharmaceuticals affordable, Medicare for all, tax the rich, break up the big monopolies and restore competition for small businesses. All of those things poll well over 50%. None of those things are happening because politicians have been bought off either by big corporations or trade associations or right-wing billionaires. This is America becoming a mafia state. You can go to opensecrets.org and plug in any politician's name, see who funds them, and you'll know how they vote. That's not how democracies are supposed to work. And until we overturn Citizens United and the other pieces of policy that have metastasized from it, this wealth mafia that's overtaken the Republican Party and controls a few Democrats, as we saw yesterday, is going to continue to run the United States and turn us into something like the Philippines or Hungary. And you know, the NFL wouldn't let this happen. They have solid rules and they enforce them. And if the owners tried, like when Trump tried to take over the NFL, they just kicked him out. They said, no way, or they wouldn't let him in. It's a low bar, but America must become at least as functional as the National Football League. You know, we have to have standards. We have to have rules that protect all the players in our democracy, and that don't just benefit the owners, to use the NFL analogy, which would be, you know, the wealthy, the stockholders, and the big corporations, but also benefit our communities, that benefit the players, the workers, and benefit the fans, that is all of us citizens. If the NFL can do it, we should be able to do it.